안녕하십니까? 제가 영국에서 온 톰 선생님입니다. 런던에서 역사에 전공하면서 학사도 받고 석사도 받았어요. 그리고 한국에 산 지 거의 8년 되었어요. 그동안 한국사, 한국 전통, 문화와 신앙에 대해서 푹 빠졌어요. 그래서 최근에 책도, 제주 신화에 관한 책도 출판할 수 있었어요. 오늘은 제가 IGCSE 학생들에게 가르치는 수업 부분적으로 드리겠습니다. 그래서 이제부터 영어로 진행하겠습니다. 자, 그래서 오늘은 I can speak in English now. Yeah, so today I thought it would be good to look at the Abyssinian crisis. So this will come up in paper 1 and paper 2. So we'll look at two questions, and this is topic 2 of the core content, the Abyssinian crisis. So we'll look at two questions today. We'll look at a paper 1 question to begin with. What were the causes of Italy's invasion of Abyssinia? Great. And so the most recent exam guidance for a 6-mark question is you need to have 2 detailed paragraphs explaining the question, answering the question. So you can think of these as 2 PEE paragraphs, point, example, explanation. It used to be they wanted more points and less explanation, but now the focus is very much on detail. Right, so let's have a look at this then. So what were the causes of Italy's invasion of Abyssinia? And we can have 2 main ideas here. Yeah, because you want 2 distinct ideas. And so I think one idea we can have, this links with Manchuria as well, is militarism. And perhaps another reason, another cause we can think of is convenience as well. Yeah, and in my classes, I like to use a lot of maps because I know a lot of students, obviously Korean students are as intelligent as any other students, if not more so. But it seems a little bit unfair because this is based mainly on European history, which, understandably Koreans might not have the same level as background knowledge on as someone from Europe. So I always like to use a lot of maps, and this is very important as well because the world is changing a lot at this time. So this is a map of the world in the 1930s. And questions like this, they use word Italy and Abyssinia, but it's worth bearing in mind that the Italy of this day is not the same as Italy as of now. Okay, and so let's have a look at the world at this time. So you see each of these colors is one of the great European empires. And the Italian Empire is a little bit pathetic compared to the other European empires. You can see the British Empire controls a lot of East Africa, South Africa, India, Myanmar, Australia. Whereas the Italian Empire, if I just label it here, is just a few pieces of Africa. It's about Libya and Somaliland. Yes, and this will be relevant. These maps are always really relevant. Geography and history definitely go very well together. Okay, and now let's zoom in a little bit on Africa. Yeah, so here we have the main empires, and you can notice that Italy is this orange one down here. So at this time, there are only 2 independent states within Africa. One of them is here, Liberia, and the other one is here, the country we're talking about today, Abyssinia. Now it's called Ethiopia, most famous for producing coffee. Yeah, so if we look at it on a map then, we can see very clearly why this is such an easy target for the Italians. Because it's bordered on both sides by Italian colonies. And, they couldn't attack anywhere else in Africa because it would be suicide. Attacking the British Empire or the French Empire would lead into an enormous war. And Liberia is too far away and also has the protection of America because it was founded to resettle African Americans after they were freed following the American Civil War. Yeah, so that's definitely one factor we can go on to. So this is the convenience then. So you could say Abyssinia is only one of 2 uncolonized and rather underdeveloped countries in Africa, and it is bordered by 2 Italian colonies, so very easy to attack there. Okay, and so that's probably enough information there then. So your topic sentence for that paragraph can be that Abyssinia was a uniquely convenient place for the Italians to attack. And then you can give 2 pieces of information there. First of all, it's very easy to attack as it's this underdeveloped, uncolonized African country. And number 2, it's very close to 2 Italian colonies, so the Italians can attack from 2 different directions. It's a sort of pincer movement. All right, and now let's get into, I would say, the more important factor. of militarism. So let's have a look. Right, this guy, I can't draw people so well, so everything is a kind of penguinish character here. So the other big factor is militarism, and from 1922, as you will know from the beginning of the League of Nations topic, Italy has been ruled by the dictator Mussolini. You don't need to know too much in depth about how he came to power, unless you're doing an Italian depth study, but usually it's not, it's Germany or America. Yeah, so Mussolini is a fascist dictator. Fascist. What does fascist mean? So fascism isn't so well defined as communism because it doesn't have a real philosophical basis, but there are some key terms. We can see it as militarist, authoritarian, one person in charge, and what's the other one? Nationalist. Yeah, so all the topics are connected. This is a great thing. So, you know, there's quite a lot to remember. You've got the Treaty of Versailles, you have the League of Nations, and you have Hitler's foreign policy, and then it goes on to the causes of the Cold War. But those three first topics are all very connected. And again, we can think of Versailles. And Italy was one country which felt that it was not given what it deserved at Versailles. It was promised all this land on the southeast coast, but it was only given some scraps in the north because Britain and France felt Italy did not perform well enough in World War I. So Mussolini promised that he was going to gain this land and he was going to make Italy strong again, make Italy great again. It's a classic right-wing phrase. And as a fascist dictator, he's very nationalist, and so he, like all the nationalist dictators, is going to look back to a glorious time of his country's history. And when was Italy most powerful? It was the Roman Empire. Yeah. So Mussolini talks about creating a new Roman Empire, and gaining control of the Mediterranean and the colony of Abyssinia is part of this idea. And specifically, there's a reason why he wants to attack Abyssinia, and that's because of this. So this is a painting found in the British Museum, and it depicts a battle between two countries. You have Abyssinia or Ethiopia on the left, and Italy on the right. So there's a reason why Abyssinia remained uncolonized, and that's because it could defeat Italy in this war in 1896, the Battle of Adwa. Yes, so Mussolini wanted to get revenge for this awful defeat, and he knew it would be popular among the Italian people as they had grown up hearing of this humiliation. So there we have it. That's our second paragraph there. Yeah, so you could say Mussolini was a fascist dictator. Yeah, and you can explain what that is a little bit more. Who wanted to make a new Roman Empire. This is very similar to Hitler in his plans for restoring German glory, and this Greater Germany idea. So it all links in together, make a new Roman Empire. Yes, and then Mussolini wanted revenge for the defeat, at the Battle of Adwa. There's many ways of spelling this. I'm just going to do A-D-W-A, and that's 1896. So there we have it. There's a good 6-mark question answer then. 2 distinct paragraphs with plenty of relevant information backing them up. Okay, and then, there's lots of stuff we can talk about with the League, and this is just the background. So in the invasion of Abyssinia, or Ethiopia as it's also called, the Italians are successful. The League of Nations, once again, does actually impose economic sanctions, but not enough. They don't impose oil sanctions or sanctions on steel and coal, so it means the Italians can be very successful. And the Italians are brutal in the tactics they use. So now let's go on to the second question then. Yeah, so study sources F and G. How far would these two cartoonists have agreed with one another, and then use details from the sources and your own knowledge? And this is always very important, own knowledge. So you've got to put in some background knowledge. And so let's have a look at this question now. Okay, great. So here are the two sources here. Yeah, so how far would these two cartoonists have agreed? And what you want to do here is you need to have one paragraph talking about similarities and one paragraph talking about differences, and then you need to have a conclusion by the end in which you say, they agreed, these two cartoonists would have agreed to a large extent or to a small extent, that kind of thing. So let's just have a look at what these two cartoons are saying here, first of all. So what have we got here then? Here we have Mussolini, and the caption is "Pat, they were uncivilized savages without ideals." And who's he talking about? The Abyssinian people. And then you see their houses behind. And then here, this is a postcard postcard published in Italy in 1936. We'll get to the significance of the dates in a minute. Let's just focus on the content here. And here you see the Italian children feeding the Abyssinian children to try and make the war a lot more cuter than it actually was. And you can't see here, but these are Italian flags. Yeah. So I think when we see these two sources, the most obvious thing is the difference between them. And so that's what we can think of first of all here then. So what was it? So in F, the Italians, are brutally killing the natives, let's just call them just to make it briefer. And then G, they are feeding them. Yeah, so they are helping them there. So that's the most obvious thing, is a difference, of course. So the Italians are portrayed in a very negative light in F, and you see the poison gas. Yeah, and you can explain this, but in the war, Italian planes dropped gas, which was an illegal method of war. Yeah. So that's a really obvious thing there then, but there's always going to be similarities and differences. So the similarity here is that, well, let's have a look at this here then. I think both of them claim that the Italians are winning the war. Here you have, the poor old Abyssinians have all been massacred by Mussolini, and he's standing proud of his murder. And then in source G, the Italians are in a position of dominance. The Ethiopians are dependent, or the Abyssinians are dependent on the Italians, and the Italian flag is flying from all their houses. I know it's black and white, so you can't tell the colors, but the Abyssinian flag is 3 horizontal colors, and the Italian flag is 3 vertical colors, so that's how you know. So I'll put the similarities in blue, actually. Yes. So this is a similarity. Both sources show the Italian as dominant. Yeah. Let's have a think here as well. Oh, another similarity as well might be that the Abyssinians themselves are portrayed in the same way. So they both show the, let's just say, natives as underdeveloped. Although, of course, you have to trust your instincts here. It's not about the most similarities or the most differences, but whether those similarities or differences are more important. And you can see the main thrust of this one is that the Italians are vicious invaders who are killing the poor native peoples. And this one, it's the civilizing mission. They're trying to justify their invasion. And how do we know that? That's when we look at who it's written by. Yeah. So this is written by the Italians. Oh, hang on 1 second. When we talk about that point the Italians are winning, we can refer to the date. Yeah, so 1936, where the Italians are winning the war. So that helps explain why they're similar. But of course, when we look at these sources, we also always want to think about their differences as well. And the difference here is explained by the authors. An English newspaper versus an Italian newspaper. So the Italian newspaper, the media is all controlled by Mussolini and the Italian state. So of course it's going to portray their invasion in a positive light. The British, it's a little bit more complicated. The British did have an alliance with Mussolini at this time because they were more worried about Hitler. So they made this alliance with Strasse front with France, Italy, and it looks like Spain, but Britain it's supposed to be, against Nazi Germany. But I think the key thrust of this is that as an English newspaper, it's very satirical and it's making fun of the Italian war effort there. So you have very different authors. You have Italian propaganda versus British satire. So although the British government might have wanted to portray Mussolini quite positively as they have an alliance with him, the British newspapers, the British people, are more cynical of the Italian war effort. And this is by David Lowe as well, who's a very famous satirist. He's actually from New Zealand, but I mean, he lives in Britain. All right, so there we go then, guys. So overall then, at the end, but there are some similarities, but I think the differences are more important here. Also in terms of what they say, the main thrust, and the authors. All right, brilliant. There we go.